For a couple of months now, the United Nations has been lamenting that it is facing severe funding shortages that are significantly impacting its operations, following reduced, delayed or withheld funding from top contributing member states, particularly the United States of America under the Trump administration, which has slashed its contributions to the international body amidst a broader foreign aid reduction campaign by Washington. And one crucial but open aspect that has lately highlighted the adverse effects of this chronic liquidity shortfall at the UN was sights of worn-out and torn chairs inside the 1,800-seater General Assembly Hall that we observed during the September 2025 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly and throughout high-level general debates. These chairs are made of bonded leather or furnished with a polyurethane coating on the base fabric, and due to friction and wear and tear resulting from high traffic use by delegates over the years or continuous stretching and rubbing during cleaning, the bonds between layers seem to have been weakened over time, resulting in the visible peeling on the surface. The General Assembly Hall had last undergone a major refurbishment in 2014, and perhaps in the run-up to the 2025 United Nations General Assembly sessions, the chairs could have particularly undergone further refurbishment or replacement of worn-out chairs to give them a fresh or new look ahead of the arrival of the heads of state and their delegations. But due to the liquidity crunch and budgetary constraints within the United Nations, perhaps refurbishing of the chairs or acquiring of new ones to maintain an elegant look inside the General Assembly Hall was least on the priority list, or didn't even make it to the priority list. In those sessions, ubiquitous scenes of worn-out chairs, especially the three beige chairs that are normally used by full delegates, could be spotted, with severe cases being for the chairs used by the Israeli delegates, and this became evident during the Israelis' absence in the preliminary session, in which the French President Emmanuel Macron delivered the speech recognizing the state of Palestine.
De personnes déplacées, blessées, affamées, traumatisées, l'assassinat terrible d'Yitzhak Rabin.
Thus, these deplorable scenes and terrible state of the chairs during the 80th United Nations General Assembly sessions subtly expose the silent woes at the UN, woes that no one seems to care about. And this brokenness at the UN headquarters actually seems to be a contradiction to the principles of the United Nations, which in itself is an organization focused on addressing and ending global poverty in all its forms, not experiencing the poverty itself. It should be noted that the United Nations have projected in mid-2025 that it risks running out of cash by October if no further interventions will come its way, and this will probably force it to borrow from closed tribunals and implement emergency measures like hiring freezes and delayed payments to partners. Several world leaders, including the Kenyan President William Ruto, warned during the 80th General Assembly that these constraints are paralyzing the United Nations at a time of global turbulence, with 61 state-based conflicts raging and humanitarian needs at record highs. And to be specific, the percentage of funding cuts by member states are not uniform across all member states, but they are disproportionately driven by major donors, especially the United States, which historically covers about 22% of the United Nations regular budget, which stood at $3.7 billion for 2025, as well as 26% of peacekeeping costs. The Trump administration has proposed reducing by half its 2025 commitments from an expected $1.5 billion to around $750 million in regular dues and voluntary contributions, with signals of an 80% reduction in dues to just $300 million for the year 2026, plus zero funding for peacekeeping and most voluntary programs. This equates to a 50% cut for 2025 and up to an 80% cut for 2026 in U.S. contributions. And as of May 2025, member states had only paid $1.8 billion, or rather 49%, toward the $3.7 billion regular budget, leaving $1.9 billion unpaid for the year, plus $2.4 billion in arrears, including $1.5 billion from the US alone. For peacekeeping missions, $2.7 billion remains unpaid, and broader multilateral aid from other global North donors like the United Kingdom, Germany and France had also declined, potentially reverting total United Nations funding to 2016 levels. 79 countries out of 193 have also not paid their 2025 regular dues in full, and 130 lag on peacekeeping, thus compounding the crisis. These reductions have triggered the UN 80 initiative, aiming for 20% staff cuts and efficiency reforms to offset losses, and the funding crisis is cascading into severe operational disruptions at headquarters and field levels, forcing a shift to doing less with less and prioritizing life-saving activities over broader mandates. The United Nations is also considering relocating roles from the headquarters in New York to lower-cost sites like Nairobi in Kenya, as well as merge of entities like peace departments. The World Food Programme plans to cut its 6,000 staff by 30%, the UNHCR by 30%, and UNICEF faces a 20% less funding. Humanitarian operations are on the other hand at 30 to 60% capacity in crises, with 250,000 children in Sudan being out of school after an 87% reduction in funding, while the multinational mission in Haiti facing a funding crisis, and Gaza's United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East having been defunded. Some of the liquidity measures that the UN is undertaking include borrowing from peacekeeping reserves and tribunals to pay salaries, but with risks of defaults as early as by September 2025, freezing travel, hiring and internal transfers, as well as delaying vendor payments. In conclusion, this chronic liquidity shortfall at the United Nations has slowed global responses, eroded morale, and allowed accused rights abusers to exploit the chaos for mandate attacks.